that preventative care when our families don't even have anything.
Nothing. The ambulance is here
Yeah.
in 5 minutes? That's impossible.
The gato starts pissing on the floor.
If there's one thing they do right in Cuba, it's healthcare.
And it may be surprising to see just how much the Cuban healthcare system is thriving.
Cuba has the best healthcare system in the entire area.
One thing that is well established in the global health community is the strength of the Cuban national health system.
Despite being a poor country, Cuba has one of the strongest healthcare systems in the world.
And in many respects, much better than the U.S.
And so now, after all these years, one thing is clear. The Cuban people have free, universal health care.
Yep, we are talking about that today. We're talking about the Cuban healthcare system sin censura. Yo soy Mari.
Y yo soy Yoel.
And as you guys can see, the Cuban healthcare system is one of the biggest topics that we get constantly on our main channel, on TikTok. It's the biggest thing that the Cuban government can say around the world. It's the biggest propaganda tool that they use around the world. And today we are going to be tackling it. Today we're going to give you guys stats. We're going to break down the myth of the greatest healthcare system in the world, Cuba's.
We show you the real life about the healthcare in Cuba.
Yes.
For my experience, because I'm a Cuban guy, I want to participate in this because I hate when I come in here for the first time and see this type of video.
Were you surprised when you saw these type of videos when you first came here?
For me, it was a really surprise.
Yeah.
Because these people don't understand. These people don't believe. And something so beautiful is the human life. Y cuando usan este mecanismo de mentira, que todo es una mentira, para engañar al pueblo americano y traerle esa miseria de healthcare que tiene Cuba, te das cuenta de que, vuelvo y te repito, Estados Unidos está en peligro.
Well, I would really like to get, before we get into it, I really want to get your personal experience because you, unlike me, you grew up in the United States. I mean, you grew up in Cuba for a very long time. You had multiple times you were in the hospital. I mean, throughout life, you know, we have to go to the hospital. So how was your experience in the healthcare system?
Mira, para mí la experiencia en el sistema de salud cubano fue muy dura. Muy dura primero porque lo vi con mis abuelos. Y déjame decirte, es duro, es muy duro cuando ves que tu abuela no tiene ni jabón para lavar, que el hospital es insalubre, que es sucio, que tienes camas al lado de ti, que tú no sabes qué enfermedad tiene el que tiene al lado, que los baños son para múltiples personas.
Yes.
Es súper, súper cochino.
Uh-huh.
Y la experiencia no más dolorosa, no con mis abuelos solo, fue con mi hija cuando nació. Cuando mi hija nació la pusieron en una mesita, normal, en esas camitas que te ponen al lado de tu mamá. Y en la gaveta al lado de la cama había cucaracha.
Sí, bueno, I don't doubt that.
Una niña de posiblemente 7, 8 días de nacida. Y eso hace más de 10 años que tiene mi hija ya.
Well, when you were in Cuba, before you came to the United States, did you think that was wrong or was it normal for you? ¿Era mal para ti en tu forma de pensar o era como normal para ti?
Mira, para mí era normal porque nacimos con eso.
Yeah.
Es que estás yendo al hospital. Yo no quisiera ir nunca a un hospital, ni de aquí ni de allá. Eso hablándote seriamente. Pero es que los de allá tú naces, ves cómo funciona y le dices, bueno, es culpa del bloqueo, culpa del embargo. Pero cuando vas pasando el tiempo te das cuenta de que hay una corrupción atrás de todo esto, que hay una mano negra atrás de esto. Te das cuenta de que tus abuelos están sufriendo, que mueren en vano por cualquier enfermedad que es curable, que la medicina es todo un mito, una mentira.
Uh-huh.
Porque lo estás viendo.
But so when you left Cuba, ¿tú sabías que todo era mentira? ¿O fue hasta que venías acá.
Yo siempre te digo, siempre me baso en las películas porque es lo que tengo yo referente, yo no tengo otra cosa, hasta antes de llegar aquí. Y yo veía las películas en los hospitales y yo me creía, ¿serán así? ¿Serán así?
Okay.
Tú sabes que no hay nadie en los pasillos, esa cantidad de gente como tú pudiste el placer de conocer.
Sí.
Y cuando llego aquí, que tuve, digo placer y desgracia con lo de tu papá, que entré por primera vez a ese hospital. Yo no sé si es público, no sé si es privado, pero lo que más me impresionó fue el piso. The floor.
Yeah.
How shiny.
How shining the floor is.
This is the floor.
Well,
oh my God, this is unbelievable.
Let's show them some pictures, because the reality of the Cuban healthcare system is, while the government says to the international community how great healthcare is, they say all these beautiful stats like, you know, the Cuban healthcare, you know, Cubans live a longer life. There's a lot more life expectancy. The infant mortality rate is lower. They say all these beautiful stats for the international community to be like, wow, maybe socialism does work, or maybe this works, or maybe that works. But the reality is so different on the
More different.
right. So just to show you guys like an example, this is one of the pictures
Oh
of
my God.
the healthcare. And when we were living in Cuba and we had to go to the hospital, I saw this with my own eyes and I was like, what in the world? I remember going to the bathroom, and it was a bathroom similar to this one, and it doesn't have any water. There's no water to flush the toilet. So there was like, it looked like, you know, there was gaga. There was everything that you could imagine. And this is a hospital, you guys. This is a hospital.
I know.
So there's another picture right there of the reality. The reality is, those beds are what, 30, 40 years old?
Oh, yeah. Mira, es que esa es la verdad. Ahí tú te estás. Esto es el típico hospital. Este es el típico hospital de Cuba. Eso es así. Es la realidad. Es así. Tú te sientas en esa silla la noche entera, el día entero, porque tienes que acompañar a tu familia, porque no hay nadie quien te va a acompañar. La enfermera no va a acompañar al paciente. Ella siempre va a ir a atenderte. Punto, se acabó. Tú tienes que ir ahí, sentarte en esa silla día tras día, que te traigan comida de tu casa. La comida que dan en el hospital es una basura. Basura. Es increíble lo que se ve ahí. Y la gente tiene que gastar miles de pesos. Pagar al médico. Porque ahí en Cuba el médico se paga.
Yeah, so that's another thing, is that in Cuba, there's this myth that everything is free. And while it is technically, you don't have to pay out of your pocket, or is a part, you know, nothing in the world is free. So it comes out from the labor of the society.
Yeah.
But technically, you know, we want to say it's free, but many times you have to bribe the doctor
For sure.
to get better attention, or to get inside, to get helped, or to get better treatment. You have
That's
to
right.
bribe the doctor.
That's right.
These sheets, there's no sheets in Cuba either. There's no bed sheets either. The family members have to bring bed sheets to cover those beds. That one looks good, actually.
No. Eso lo que tú ves ahí, es el colchón.
Sí. Pero ese colchón se ve más o menos bien.
No.
But there's other colchones that I have seen with my own eyes that are like there's blood stains on them. And your family has to bring the sheets because there's no sheets.
Porque es que no confían. Mira, si tú confiaras en el sistema de salud que hay ahí, tú no trajeras sábana. Pero el cubano se adaptó a decir, no traigo sábana porque no sé dónde las lavan, no sé cómo las lavan, no sé si le echan detergente, no sé si le echan jabón, no sé si las secan bien. Y es un hospital que tiene enfermedades, porque hay gente que tiene enfermedades bacterias.
Yeah.
Y eso puede afectar a tu familiar.
Así mismo.
Y entonces el pueblo dice, mira, antes que yo pongas tú la sábana, la pongo yo. Yo no puedo perder que mi abuela tenga un riesgo de que si llega a una enfermedad, tenga otra. Que pasa muchas veces en Cuba. En Cuba la gente te dice, mira, en Cuba entras a un hospital con una enfermedad y sales con 10.
Yeah,
That's
a
real life. In Cuba,
Yeah.
you go to the hospital, you have a 1-6, and you come in outside to 10. go out to 10.
Yeah, I mean, so there's there's this facade that it's free and it's not free. So that's one of the big myths shattered. And then for me, when I went, we unfortunately fell off a motorcycle in Cuba, and I got both of us got pretty burned.
Yeah, I know.
We got road rash. We got pretty heavy injuries. And I remember falling, and then all of a sudden, this guy takes me in his Jeep into the hospital. And I am there. And up to this point, I have always known about the Cuban healthcare system. Like, I have been in hospitals before, but I was never I wasn't really treated. I was never really treated. We always went to the policlínicos, eso era más o menos bien.
No, sí, porque son chicos.
Yeah, because they're smaller. The policlínicos are like really small.
Son malos.
Yeah, but for me, I never really saw like a full-on I never had really been into a full-on hospital. And so when I was in there and being a patient myself, I kind of remember they did an ultrasound on me with an ultrasound from like the 1970s. Like, it was a Soviet era ultrasound. And then they took me for the x-rays.
And that's a national hospital.
Yes.
Hospitals we have in my state, we have only 2 hospitals.
Yeah, there's only 2
that's
hospitals.
No,
in
we don't have more in Pinar. There is only 2 hospitals, and that one was the first one.
Yeah, and then when we went to the x-rays, I will remember this like it was a movie. I went to the x-rays to do my x-rays. I'm sitting there, everything is fine. So they had to wipe it down because there was una cucaracha encima donde there was a cockroach on top. Oh, so they had to clean it. Okay, so that was number one. I was like, ay Dios mío. But you know what? I was like, okay, well, en Cuba todo siempre hay cucaracha. I'm in there and I see a fucking stray cat. I see un gato. And I was like, and then the gato, it was like out of a fucking movie. I swear to God. The gato comes in, the gato starts pissing on the floor. And I'm like, this is supposed to be a hospital? And it was crazy. It was crazy for me.
Do you know how many cats and dogs?
Dogs and cats are like roaming around.
in the hospital?
See?
Maybe 14.
I mean, but can you imagine a hospital with dogs and cats in it?
14 cats.
I know. So the cleanliness is not there.
No. My first time when I see the cat in the hospital was maybe 10 years ago. So, wow. And that time was 4 or 5 cats.
Yeah.
Do you know why the animal is there? Because the people in the room, bring the food.
Well, Yoel, no dogs or cats should ever be in a hospital. That is crazy.
I know, pero como los animales en Cuba, no es como aquí, eso es otro tema. Muy diferente a lo que se ve en Cuba, lo que se ve en el comunismo. Mira, ellos van porque hay comida.
Well, yeah.
La comida que tú traes, tú no la desechas en un basurero. La gente la desecha está como que el floor,
yeah.
El floor tiene como un murito.
Yeah.
Entonces la gente tira ahí, la tira para afuera.
Yeah.
¿Qué hace? Eso genera que el animal venga y dice, esto es un hotel para mí.
Claro.
Comida gratis.
Claro.
Comida gratis.
Yeah.
Gratis.
But,
vienen estos animales. Y las ratas ni te digo, las ratas son así.
So comparing that experience to the tourist experience, the experience that Michael Moore did on Sicko, the moment I saw Sicko with Michael Moore, and the hospital that he goes to, everybody knows it in Cuba, is Sica Garcia, no?
It's Cira Garcia.
The hospital that Michael Moore goes to, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Because just where it is in Havana, you know where it is and you know what the hospital is. Yeah. It's Cira Garcia, and that is literally for tourists only, or the important people in the party or
around the world.
Yeah. And he goes in there thinking that that's a normal hospital, and he does this entire documentary thinking that it's a normal hospital. So this is one of the hospitals that is strictly for tourists.
Tourist people, tourists and politician people. That's it.
and it's much different because tourists in Cuba, this is also a false narrative that they'll push, that in Cuba you can get your free health, Americans can get free healthcare. Wrong. You have to pay for it in Cuba as well. And if you go on the website of Cira Garcia, it's actually here. We'll show you the website. Okay, so this is the website for the. This is the website for the tourists in Cuba. So I'll kind of say it in English. So for why would they put this on? This seems so strange.
That's the price.
So to get a heart transplant,
Yeah.
it's $70,000 US dollars.
Yeah.
To get a heart transplant is $70,000 US dollars. To get a
Médula espinal. The back.
Yeah, I can't read it. The transplant for the back, it's what? 40,000?
40,000.
This is very strange. Why would they put this on the website?
Because that's only for the tourist people and the politician. You know, the most important for me, I have the history about that. I have when I come in, my history when I come in Russia, somebody bring me to me.
Yeah.
That guy was a problem in the lip. Y él tenía que hacerse en el hospital, tenía que hacerse esos de cambiarse la sangre, ¿me entiendes? Ese limpieza de sangre. Y él siempre iba o lo llevaba. Y a raíz de, creo que hace 2 años atrás, 3, yo lo veo y me dice, hey, Yoel, ¿cómo tú estás? Yo, bien, bien, bien. Dice, oye, no hay transporte para llevarme al hospital, hacerme la limpieza de sangre. Yo decía, wow, man, why? Y dice, no sé, Yoel. Y entonces, al pasar del tiempo, me vuelve a ver, me dice, Yoel, ya no hay para hacer limpieza de sangre. Ya no puedo hacer, estoy esperando un trasplante.
Oh, he was doing dialysis?
Yeah, dialysis.
Okay.
Ahí estaba esperando un trasplante para ver si podía volver a seguir viviendo. Y no hace ni 1 año atrás, dice mi mamá, ¿sabes quién murió?
Oh.
Se me olvidó el nombre, se murió fulano.
Yeah.
Y para mí fue, wow.
Yeah.
Porque él me dice a mí, en esa última entrevista que la tuve con él, díceme, ya no puedo ir a lo que Dios quiera. Ya estoy en manos de Dios y que Dios decida. Y a mí nunca se me olvida eso. Porque cuando mi mamá me dice ese mensaje, me dice, wow, entonces ves estas imágenes que un turista puede pagarse 70,000 de un trasplante, que estoy seguro que le van a conseguir el órgano, porque eso es un contrabando que hay en la medicina cubana. Y ves este tipo de personas, no solo él, imagínate los miles que hay en Cuba, que no tienen ni cómo ir al hospital, que viven lejos, que el transporte se les rompió y tienen necesidad de ir, porque tú sabes que no hay transporte en Cuba.
No, no hay.
Y yo me pregunto, cuando tú ves estas páginas, yo digo, wow, ¿cómo es posible que ellos te vendan la salud si es gratis? Si la salud es lo mejor que tiene Cuba, si la salud es lo que ellos venden en la internacional. Y todo es una mentira.
Well, then people can say, well, it's much more expensive here in the United States.
I know, I can handle that, pero es que yo prefiero pagar, en Cuba ya se hace, ya en Cuba la gente dice, prefiero pagar la salud que estar mendigando la salud.
Yeah. I mean, that's another topic we can talk about. The U.S. healthcare system is, by no means we're trying to compare. They're just too different. We're just trying to say that, this false narrative around the world where the Cuban healthcare system is one of the top and one of the best it's just not true. It's, you'll have professors that will think this, that will push this narrative. You'll have the Cuban government itself push this narrative. It gets trickled down to talking heads. It gets trickled down to the American left that like to say things. It gets even trickled down all the way to TikTok.
Yeah.
And we saw this video on TikTok.
I know.
And it gets to the point, it gets to the point where it's so exhausting trying to tell the world that it's not like this. So here she is. She's from the Young Turks. This is Anna from the Young Turks.
Americans have the same life expectancy as Cubans. The reason why is Cuba, even with its lack of resources, even with the embargo that the United States has implemented against Cuba, even with the United States stating that Cuba is a state sponsor of terror, which prevents other countries from doing trade and business with Cuba, Cuba still has a comparable life expectancy rate to Americans because they focus most of their energy on preventative health care.
That point is the most comical. The preventative health. Ay, Dios mío, esta niña.
Oh, this is stupid. This is stupid. This is the type of stupid American people putting the TV and lying the American people.
I mean, no, I don't think she's lying. I think that she genuinely thinks that this is true without ever have gone to Cuba, without ever stepping foot inside the country, stepping foot inside an actual Cuban hospital that's not for tourists. And to say that there is preventable healthcare in Cuba when our families do not even have Advil, they don't even have ibuprofen, they don't even have bandages, they don't have prenatal care, and then to turn it around and say that it's the embargo's fault, when the embargo specifically states since 1992 that it exempts medical supplies and medicine, and to blame it on the embargo. Well, maybe because the Cuban government has destroyed the economy so much, Anna, that people cannot they can't make a profit with trading with anybody in Cuba. So that's why American medicine doesn't even go inside the country, or Advil or Tylenol or brands like that, because there's no money to be made because the Cuban people don't have any money to spend on it. Nor will the Cuban government. But it doesn't have to be the Cuban individual. It could be the Cuban government that doesn't even want. The Cuban government has the opportunity to trade with Cuba on medicine and supplies, and they choose not to, Anna. And so for the audacity, the caucasity to mansplain to Cubans this bullshit that preventative care when our families don't even have anything. Nothing. Let's keep going.
They don't have the resources to treat illnesses that have progressed past a certain point. So they know that preventative health care is critical in keeping people alive in their country. In America, you ain't got health insurance, you ain't got the resources to pay for preventative care, you can kick rocks.
Okay, so I mean, there's not even ambulances in Cuba to get people. So when you see things like that, Yoel, how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel, Yoel?
I feel so fucking furious, because these people born here, when you call 911, and remember when you they have the opportunity that happened, the ambulance coming here.
Yeah.
For me, it was shock because you call the ambulance 911 in 5 minutes.
Not even 5 minutes.
The ambulance,
literally 45 seconds.
And when I hear the ambulance, you say, wait. The ambulance is here?
Yeah.
In 5 minutes? That's impossible, because in my own country, that's not happen.
Well, how does it make you?
You need a way.
But how does it make you feel when she says things like, the Cuban? She's alluding that the Cuban healthcare system is superior.
Why is superior when the politicians in Cuba travel another country for healthcare? Why?
Who has traveled to another country?
Oh, many of the politicians. Chavez coming to Cuba, but in the end, she needed travel to another country. Fidel Castro's daughter, Fidel Castro's son, travel to another country and buy medicine in another country. Se atienden en otros países, no se atienden en Cuba, o se atienden en estos hospitales.
Ah, sí.
Que los hospitales tienen de todo.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, Anna.
Anna, you need to think about it, who you say, or what are you talking in TV, or what are you talking, or de qué hablas. Básate en buscar pruebas reales, no lo que la dictadura te quiere dar a ti.
Bueno, hablando de pruebas, okay, talking about stats. We don't come here without receipts, mi gente.
That's right.
We do not come here without receipts. So today we're going to go into it because we can say these things all we want and people will not believe us.
That's right.
But it's another thing to see stats directly from the Cuban government
The
themselves.
Cuban government news.
So let's show them. Okay, so this is some receipts that we got for you, mi gente.
Yeah, for you, blondie girl. That's for you.
This is from ONAI, which is ONAI. Sorry, ONAI.
Whatever.
This is from ONAI, and this is from the Cuban government. This is the what is the abbreviation mean? Oficina de qué?
Organización
Nacional
de Inversión
de
y Planificación.
Okay, and this is from 2021. So from the first half of 2021, they show where the money that they put the money in every single sector. So as you can see, it starts from 2014. 2014, the blues are inversión. How do you say that in English?
Services, inversion, and activity. And
okay, so the blue is the budget for construction of hotels, construction of houses, construction, right?
Rent.
Okay, and then the red is inversions through agriculture.
Yeah.
The green is inversions through
healthcare.
And then the pink is education.
Education.
You guys, can you see what has been happening since 2014 to 2021? The amount of money that the Cuban government has invested in building hotels and building the building sector, right?
Yeah,
mostly it goes to hotels.
Yeah.
Because they aren't.
Forget the house.
Yeah. They're not building houses. They're building hotels.
That's it.
So you guys can see that it's significantly risen from 21% to 50%. That is more than a 50% increase in where the Cuban government decides to put its money. And at the same time, mi gente, look at that. Look at the green and look at the pink. The green is health and the pink is education. From 2.2% to 0.3. 0.3.
It's unbelievable. That's huge.
Huge.
That's a huge.
What is that? Like a 75% or more than that? A 75% reduction in the where the Cuban government decides to put its money, and that is in healthcare.
Only healthcare.
The same healthcare that they'll go around the world saying how great it is.
How great it is. That's right.
So as you guys can see, we can see the priorities of the Cuban government right there and then. So Michael Moore, come for it, me. Okay? Come with a better argument than that right there.
Let me tell you something, Michael Moore. When the documental Cisco's come into the Cuban, the Cuban propaganda using that documentary.
Oh yeah, of course they did.
Because they needed the Cuban people to say, hey, we have the best healthcare around the world.
Yeah, look, even this American filmmakers come.
Unbelievable. Let me tell you, unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
unbelievable that because
you did.
For me, when I go outside of the street, I say, wow, my healthcare is better to the United States.
Yeah.
That's the only movie. Nah, that's fucking movie.
No,
that's really bad. That's a liar. But when you come in here and you see the reality and you see that type of people que desmienten a Michael Moore, say, how is possible that government liar uses my people for the only one purpose is power?
Yeah, and I think, you got to remember that Michael Moore did his documentary before the internet even came to Cuba.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Much before. Oh, yeah. And so, of course, the Cuban government used it for propaganda.
Was it 2013?
And what has been happening now, Yoel? Everyone's uploading the reality of Cuba and the hospitals to the internet. I mean, in July 2021, when the COVID cases spiked in Cuba, there was a complete collapse of the Cuban healthcare system.
Oh.
And people were uploading their videos, and that's what caused the major protests in Cuba.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, of course, you took it, you took that propaganda. I remember when I was in Cuba, people used to ask me, I remember somebody asked me in el barrio, estuvimos hablando de la medicina, ¿no? And they go, Mari, is it really true that in America, if you drop dead in the street, they just leave you there? And I said, no, it's not true. I said, that's not true at all. Okay, if you don't have healthcare, that's one thing. But people don't let you die on the street without calling the ambulance.
That
is completely, that's nonsense.
That's
that
offensive.
Doesn't happen.
That's really offensive. That's the government use it for our people, the Cuban people.
Yeah, I know they use that.
When you say, hey, the United States living that the people die in the street or die in the hospital.
Yeah.
You say, oh my God, I don't want to go there. No,
I
don't want to go to healthcare in the United States. When you see the reality here, says, hey, that's not true.
Yeah, it's not true at
all.
For
example, my mom now 2024, 2023, they say, Mom, nobody here die in the street or the hospital or the government. If you can pay the operation or whatever you needed. The government don't say, hey, no. The government say, no, die in the street. No, that's not happen.
Right.
That's not happen, Mom.
Right.
They say, Mama, oh yeah, wow. That I think is different. And that's the Mom. That's because the government using that propaganda against you.
Exactly.
And that you need to understand that.
Yeah, exactly. And then they'll say things like, well, what about before Fidel, right? And something that my grandma's 101 years old. And when the revolution came, she was 40 years old. Okay. She was 40 years old when the revolution came to Cuba. So she remembers life before Castro and life really before Batista.
I know.
And she remembers and she goes, Mari, this thing that Fidel brought universal healthcare to everyone, that is a lie, because in Cuba there were public hospitals before Fidel. She said she never used to have to. My grandma grew up poor, by the way. My grandma was
farmer.
He knows.
Farmer girl.
He knows. My grandma grew up very poor, and she goes, I never had to pay for anything. She's like, I never had to pay for anything. We went to the public hospitals. Of course, the private ones were better.
Of course.
But if you needed something, you would go to the private hospitals. I mean, the public hospitals, and they would treat you. And she's like, I never had to pay for anything. And I was like, are you sure, abuela? Because Fidel is, doing a 1984 on everybody, George Orwell.
And you doubted that. You tell me nowadays. And you sure? And when you say,
I was like, are you sure,
abuela?
Because the propaganda.
I know.
It's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like 1984 George Orwell's type of shit. And then they'll say things like, well, the life expectancy is much better now than it was in 1950. Well, yes, everybody, all the nations around the world's life expectancy is greater than the United States than 1950. And it's like, you guys, there's historical data to back this up, where the life expectancies has risen, right?
Yeah.
But it's risen everywhere around the world.
I know. It's totally fucked up. It's totally so sad. I remember my grandma.
Yeah, I remember your
grandma. I have my
too.
grandma. I was my grandma.
Teresa.
Yeah, Teresita. Ella lo sabe. No tengo fotos aquí. Desgraciadamente, mi abuela living for 5 years before she died, living in the bed. Asking Marisa.
Yeah.
Asking me first, hey, can you please talking to Marisa if she can bring me here? Pamper.
Yeah.
And bring, hey, you have Bengay? I need a job because the Bengay relieve me all my bones.
I had to bring an entire maleta de Bengay.
Is that so sad? Thank you for the follower, the many other followers helping in that. When you see that, I say, Grandma, that happened to the communists. He said, and she in the bed. He said, I know, Joe, but I can move. I can do nothing. I'm old. That's your job now. I wanted to change you. I wanted you change the country. Do it. Because in my time, I can see that they're using me. And now this happened to me.
I know. I remember her telling me that.
And she needed a wheelchair. And she needed asking his brother living in United States, the old man,
Yeah.
73 years. Hey, can you buy me the wheelchair and bring me here? And my uncle, his brother, didn't take it. He needed to buy the wheelchair and send it to Cuba for her.
Yeah.
Why you fighting for the community healthcare if you don't have wheelchair? And that's really sad. And the American people, when you see this blonde girl in the news, or most of the people say, no, the healthcare in Cuba is the best. That's a liar. That's a really liar. That's it.
It is a lie, because the Cuban government has used this propaganda scheme. And then they do it. We haven't even talked about the doctors that go around the world.
Oh my God! No, that's another
modern
big
day
issue and problem.
That's a big issue. It's a modern day slavery, and maybe we can do another podcast on that. But they send these doctors around the world to say, like, yeah, we send doctors, not bombs, around the world. And while it seems great that they're doing this,
I know.
It seems beautiful that they're
beautiful
doing this. That people don't understand that the Cuban government gets paid by other governments to send their doctors.
Yeah.
And the Cuban, it's modern day slavery. It's what it is.
It's traffic.
And so the Cuban government gets paid by other governments, right? Let's say, for example, that Brazil wants Cuban doctors to come and treat their patients. So the Brazilian government will pay the Cuban government per each doctor. Now, the Cuban government doesn't give that to the doctor. They keep it. And then they send the doctors to Brazil. They say, we'll give you, a car. We'll give you this. We'll give you that, which never happens.
That was the beginning.
But anyways, yeah. And so they'll go to these countries, and the Cuban government will take away Cuban passports, because a lot of Cuban doctors defected, and pay them a miserable salary just for living expenses in that said country. And then they'll freeze their assets in Cuba until they come back. So that's a way for them to, you need to come back to Cuba, right? Right. And it's a modern day form of slavery.
That's a human trafficking.
It is human trafficking. It is human trafficking.
Professional human traffic.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up, you know what? I think we're going to have to do a second part of this. If enough people comment and think that this is something that they want to hear about, because that's important. We could do this podcast for, I don't even know, 3 hours.
Yeah.
Because it's just so complex and so nuanced. And it's a lie. It's a lie.
Everything in Cuba is a liar. It's a lie. That's it. That's a problem in Cuba. And that's what we hear, you and me, say, hey, American people, don't believe in that.
Yeah, and I think most Cuban voices outside of the island would agree. I think the entire diaspora would be like, yes, because they have lied for so long. And they make, and then it gets trickled down to the society where people make those stupid TikTok videos.
I know. Oh my God.
And it's frustrating as, Cubans, both of us, and Cuban Americans, to see that and to think, this is such a lie. So let us know in the comments if you want us to keep talking about this. I mean, we had so much more prepared, but we are, it's getting a little lengthy. So let us know if you guys want more of this topic. I feel like we should probably do a live stream of this.
We need a live stream in that.
We got a live
and
stream.
You people, call us, use the phone. We send in the phone. You have our link. Take it and you do it with us, asking whatever you want, and that's what we hear.
Yeah.
For you. Exactly. Only for you. Only for this stupid blonde girl like you. Okay, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. This is Sin Censura. And we'll keep telling the truth, Aki. Bye.
We love